Oh my God, Linda's. Welcome to part 2.
Yeah, we went a little long on that, so we decided to go ahead and
Divvy
just
it
make
up.
this a two-parter.
So
So,
we're recording the whole thing in the same day, which is why we look the same.
right,
However,
we just copy and pasted ourselves.
oh,
How funny it would be if we were able to just get like AI versions of ourselves, so we could just talk, but in the AI would like mimic us, but we wouldn't literally have to physically record ourselves.
honestly,
That'd be kind of weird.
if it did it at the same time, almost like a filter. Could you imagine if we did a filter? I think I would
Well,
be too busy staring at it and get distracted, be like, "Oh my God, is that my eyebrow?"
but
Ow!
also, so you know
I
that what?
just hit my head on the
Ow.
microphone.
Well, you know those Apple the Apple like virtual like augmented reality goggles. One of the things that they're talking about doing is making it where when you FaceTime in that, it presents an AI avatar of you that
Like
is
a
talking and
hologram
behaving
thing.
like you, but it's not actually an image of you. That'd be kind of fucking cool. Anyway,
We could
80s space nerd here.
We could project ourselves into your room.
So we're not just invading your ear holes, we're literally invading your home. But anyway.
That sounds like a threat, honestly.
Never heard that from the Rise Guy show? Invading
Yes.
your ear holes.
I just we're invading your home. That sounds like a threat.
No, not really. Anyway,
So
we talked about physical health,
yeah, as part of our personal wellness, we're moving on from physical health to
mental health, and this one's fun. And if you haven't had a chance to go and watch the live that I did with EMS Avenger, I posted it as episode 60, but we deep dived some into some of these topics, and
well, in some of our topics too. So this is obviously, as we said earlier, the third time we've gone through our core values. So this is our third personal wellness episode. However, on the mental health topic, especially like my Listen Linda shift shorts, all of our September 2024, as of right now, 2024 episodes, they're all on mental health. Mine, his shift shorts, I
yeah,
think as well, and our grouping ones. So like we hit mental health hard
yeah,
with research. It's not all repeating the same stuff,
yeah, we beat the horse over and over and over again.
but in different directions.
Got to make it even.
I don't think that nobody knows what that means.
So, Michelle is a tad OCD, and
you're sharing.
yeah,
I have OCPD, which is a diagnosis. It's obsessive compulsive personality disorder.
So basically, what it works out to is, if I smack her butt, I have to smack the other butt cheek too.
Or I physically feel uneven. Like he could poke me in a random spot in my back and I can physically feel it. I physically feel uneven. So then he has to poke me on the opposite side, but in the exact same position. It has to be mirrored, basically.
I can't give her a regular high five too. I have to give her a high five, and then I have to use the other hand to give her a high five.
My favorite thing is when
on her other hand.
No. My favorite thing is when I have a partner that wants to high five me. They do a high five, and I'm like, other hand, make it even, and they're just like,
huh?
Most of them do it.
Yeah.
Most of them do
I've
it.
gotten used to it now.
Daniel just automatically does it now.
Yeah, I've accepted my fate.
He's trained.
Yeah. So this is going to be heavy. I'm actually glad we made this into a second episode. So, on the topic of mental health, there are 3 again obstacles/excuses.
I would like to preface real quick that you're probably going to get your fucking feelings hurt.
Yeah. Well, and I really like the term friction, because and it applies to a lot of different situations, but there are many things in life that create friction that are I wouldn't even say obstacles, because none of these stop you from doing anything. It just makes things harder. And sometimes that's self-induced or it's externally induced. But it's just something that creates friction, that you have to get past that friction. And that is where you do the work, getting through the friction, because obviously, if all the solutions were easy to do, then nobody would have to work hard for it. Nobody would appreciate it. So getting through that friction requires consistency. It requires intentionality, all the stuff we've talked about in the previous episode. And it requires you having a deliberate plan ahead for what to do with all of this.
And I would also say commitment, because you can consistently half-ass something, but that doesn't mean that you're taking it to heart. You have to make a commitment to yourself that you are going to try your damnedest to succeed in whatever it is that you're trying to do.
And you're going to experience friction your entire life. Like, there's never a point where you get through the friction and then everything's just easy as pie. Now, there are certain things where you may overcome friction in a certain area of your life, but then you have another hill that you have to climb up that is even more friction or a different kind of friction. Like, you're always going to face that in your life. That's never going away.
Well, and unless you become a hermit that like completely isolates, you're going to have friction because as humans, we're going to have friction amongst each other.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you have a healthy relationship, Daniel and I will openly admit we may have disagreements. We do not fight, but the disagreements that, or, seeing things differently, or,
Mm-hmm.
even in scheduling conflicts, it's friction. It is friction,
Mm-hmm.
that you have to actively work. So unless you're going to become a hermit, you're always going to have friction if you deal with anybody.
The three main, we'll say, sources of friction on the topic of mental health are: one, emotional regulation / trauma; two, our socialization choices; three, unhealthy coping mechanisms. So emotional regulation and trauma, that's a big one right there.
First, stop with the victim mentality.
Yep.
Boo fucking who if you have experienced any kind of trauma in your life. I am so fucking tired. This has become a thing that I see a lot on social media, and it's, oh, in EMS we see such bad things. Okay, yes, yes, I'm sure I'm gonna get crucified for that. Yeah, we see some really fucking horrible things, but you know what? It doesn't give you license to be a lazy fuck who treats other people like shit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't fucking care because guess what? All of us have had bad calls. Every single one of us. The only people that truly need to know or, be reminded that we see bad calls is if we're trying to get the public, whether it's county or whatever, justifying pay raises, whatever, help them understand what our job entails. But person to person and how we treat each other, I don't fucking care what calls you've run. Also, I don't fucking care what happened in your childhood because guess what? The more people you actually talk to, all of us, because of the generation that we were raised in, all of us have childhood trauma. Yes, there are different severities of trauma. There are different things that mean different things to different people.
Mm-hmm.
But the simple fact of, oh, I had trauma, get the fuck over it. Like, we're seriously to that point. Have your feelings, but the solutions that we're going to talk about, you don't get to complain about your trauma or having a bad day. I don't fucking care if you get triggered riding on an ambulance because something bad happened in the past. Go to fucking therapy. But with our obstacles, everybody has trauma. Everybody runs bad calls. It does not give you license to have poor emotional regulation. If you
Mm-hmm.
have poor emotional regulation, guess what? Work on your physical health because physical and mental health go together.
And like you said previously, it's not trauma comparing
Mm-hmm.
to identify that there are different layers of trauma. There are
Mm-hmm.
different kinds, different categories, different severities, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
There is a level of objective relativeness. Like, that's kind of a weird combination of words, but objectively, there is some relativity between different categories of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Even with you and I, we have very different sources of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
I am perfectly comfortable saying, hey, you've been through a lot heavier shit than I have. That doesn't mean that my trauma is any less genuine or real or impactful,
Mm-hmm.
but I can objectively say, hey, you've been through a lot heavier shit than me, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to make those statements. You don't have to dick measure on who's got the worst trauma.
Mm-mm.
Like,
Well,
it's no different than who runs the worst calls. Like, you can go on here and brag about the kinds of calls you run. Guess what? There's somebody who's run harder shit than you. It's no different with psychological trauma
Mm-hmm.
or physical trauma. It doesn't matter. There's variety, but stop making it a dick measuring contest on who has the worst and who can have the most victim badges. And I be able to identify and say, hey, you know what? I realize I deal with this. I need to go find a solution for this and not bleed on everybody in your life and hurt more people in your life because of the shit that you aren't fucking dealing with.
Well, and that's how generational trauma gets perpetuated.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I went through something traumatic, so I'm going to be a dick bag to literally everybody, including my children, family,
Don't fucking
etc.
care.
It don't care, but also it doesn't matter. I have two younger siblings that were raised in the same household. All of us experienced the same type trauma to different severities based on age or how old we were when the stuff happened.
Mm.
all of us present symptoms of being traumatized differently as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what is the story? It's two brothers were raised in the same
Yes.
household with an alcoholic father. I think we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Two brothers were raised in a household with an alcoholic father. One became successful, one turned into an alcoholic. And when asked, why did you turn out such and such? The successful brother said, well, I turned out this way because of my dad. Well, the alcoholic brother, when asked the same question, why did you turn out this way? His excuse was, well, I turned out this way because of
Because
my
my dad.
dad. Well, if you look at me and my two younger siblings, all of us have hit differently amongst the do you use drugs, did you go to school, how successful are you? All of us are very, very different. Ironically, I got traumatized the most and I'm the most successful, but that's beside the point. I guess that
There's an
is
interesting correlation between success and childhood trauma.
there is. And
Massive
actually,
correlation.
didn't you say it's the most successful CEOs were 9 times out of 10 traumatized as children?
Mm-hmm.
So there is a correlation. Trauma and coping mechanisms, when utilized, I guess you could say utilized correctly, and if you follow appropriate solutions, can actually benefit you. I feel like, well, Daniel and I both have said this,
Mm-hmm.
that by having trauma not related to this field, it helps us compartmentalize and deal with the job better. I have zero trauma from this job. I have no fucking issues with calls. Like, in the moment, I've had a couple that I'm like, oh my God, that's so sad. But like, it's not something that follows me home. It's
Mm-hmm.
not something that's constant. One of my listen Lindas, I briefly touched on like categorically some of the shit that's happened to me in my life. But the whole point is you have to emotionally regulate. It's not trauma comparing if Daniel and I, if we weren't partners, but like actual work partners. They're just sitting here talking and he tells me something. I'm like, oh my God, that reminds me of blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
You can talk about stuff. Don't compare.
Yeah. It doesn't do anybody any good if you just sit and marinate in your trauma. It doesn't build healthy relationships. When you don't deal with these things, you actually are literally hardwiring your brain to function in unhealthy ways, many different unhealthy ways. You're hijacking your dopamine system.
Mm-hmm.
You're hijacking serotonin. You're hijacking
Your
your
cortisol
cortisol.
levels.
You're
Yep.
you're hijacking all of it, and it doesn't just affect you.
Mm-hmm.
You bleed out to the people around you, and it manifests in different ways. But when you start paying attention to this, you can start to see, hey, the people that are the most emotionally regulated are not the least traumatized people.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. If anything, I would say is actually there's actually kind of an inverse, or actually no, a direct correlation of more trauma you have, the more emotional regulation you have the possibility of having. I would
Possibility, yeah.
say, just statistically, I see that the people who have less trauma deal with it the worst.
Well, let's
Just personal observation.
one that everybody is familiar with is the expression that the happiest people are usually the saddest. Let's take Robin Williams for example. What
Mm-hmm.
did everybody say? Nobody knew he was depressed. Granted, not mental health, just general health diagnoses and stuff, obviously plays a role into it. But that is true. I guarantee you that most people who don't know anything about me, they see me, I smile. Well, I do have RBF, so
Oh yeah.
I try to smile and be friendly at work, and on the podcast we're very happy, chipper, we're talking. I mean, obviously we get serious, but like most people would not guess that I have fucking complex PTSD and I'm traumatized as fuck. Nobody would guess that the first 28 years of my life were literal trauma after trauma after trauma, instability, fear, all of the homelessness, all of the things. But the point is, don't just assume because somebody is acting happy to you that they're not dealing with something.
Mm-hmm.
Don't assume that the person that has the shittiest fucking attitude is the one whose life is falling apart. Now, it may feel like their life is falling apart, but the point is we need to work on emotional regulation. It is possible to deal with something, but calmly talk about something. And listen, kind of like earlier today, actually, I was so fucking overstimulated, I wanted to Everybody. Could
I
the
might bleep
cat
that part out.
sorry. Not actually.
I know.
Not actually. But, I was considering having, cat for dinner because the cat was breathing too loud. Like, but I had enough.
Which he does.
He does snore. I'm pretty sure he has a deviated septum, but that's not the point. Literally. But emotionally regulate, express. Look, I'm really irritable. I need like 2 minutes of just silence. I need to literally listen to the buzzing of silence in order to calm down.
Mm-hmm. I've had plenty of times where I've had to tell, well, obviously I don't have partners right now, but in the past I've had to tell partners, hey, I'm not having a great day right now.
I just need to
I'm really
breathe.
not. So I'm like, if I seem withdrawn, it's not you. It's nothing personal. I'm going to do my best to manage it on calls. I'm just letting you know I'm dealing with some shit. I'm just not in a place right now. Cool. That's fine. Like, have that conversation. And if that's every day, okay, cool. Have the conversation.
That's literally emotional regulation.
Yes, by being able to identify it and communicate it, you are already taking some steps to manage it. Mm-hmm. But that kind of feeds into the second obstacle is our socialization choices. And we do not do ourselves any favor in EMS by forming this kind of exclusive club where we only hang out with the people that we resonate with, which is people that work in public service. We've talked about this before, the analogy of a crab fisherman. When they have a whole bunch of crabs that are in, the big basins they keep them in when they're still alive. And if one crab tries to get up, the other crabs will kind of try and pull them down. That's exactly what we do in EMS. If you have one person who's trying to make things better, make their life better, try to improve the environment around them, everybody else is going to try and stomp on them. It's like whack-a-mole. And you're not allowed to do that. So we perpetuate that. And we don't go out of our way to relate to people who are doing better in life than us, who are doing different things than us. So we're just constantly in this cesspool of emotional dysregulation and bleeding on each other and bad coping mechanisms and everything. And we isolate ourselves from healthy relationships. Why do you think our divorce rates are so fucking high? And I'm saying that as a man who's been divorced.
And
why do you think it?
You didn't get divorced because of public service.
No, but
though.
it didn't. I mean, it didn't help the situation. But in general, I'm just saying I'm not on a pedestal. Like, I'm divorced too, so yeah. I'm right there with you guys. We both are.
I would say I'm divorced too. I would preface that mine was not because of public service,
no.
But in general,
we're not throwing shade on being divorced.
No,
it is. Unfortunately, it's a part of life right now for most people. But
I would argue it's because of emotional regulation.
Agreed. But even outside of marriages, just how many toxic dating relationships do we see all the time in public service?
Well, with socialization, especially because you have male and female partners, it also people are crossing boundaries. Mm-hmm. People are crossing boundaries left and right. Like, okay, cool. You may share some trauma over a call and then you end up trauma bonding and then you start blurring lines of, going from being, haha flirty to actually flirty to sexting to it. That goes with socialization too. Mm-hmm. Just recently, I was told of some of my favorite partners at a different service, are in a relationship. And there is a female that just got out of a relationship and started sexting the male partner. And I can tell you right now, from knowing him, knowing his actual girlfriend, their dynamic, his truthfulness, all the rest of it, he did not instigate something. And something interesting that Daniel and I've actually talked about with the male-female dynamic is like sometimes when a female is taken by, a strong alpha male, other men will leave her alone. Not always, but mm-hmm. consistently. When a strong male is taken by a female, it makes him look more desirable to other females. So then you have other females. Ladies, let's stop being cunts, okay? Like, that is so, I can't tell you, that is so fucked up. Like, okay, cool. You're jealous that, this chick has a good man. Go get your own fucking good man. Stop sleeping around. Stop being a slut. Stop being a cunt and go get your own good man. Maybe you'll find your own good man if you stop acting like a whore. Like, I'm sorry. When it comes to the socialization, it's fucked up. Men, stop being whores yourselves. I mean, it goes on both sides, but I can at least speak to the ladies. Like, if a dude is taken, leave him the fuck alone. Go get a vibrator if you need somebody and you can't get a boyfriend. Like, there is too much shit on
Go
on
find Bob.
What?
Go find Bob. Battery-operated boyfriend.
Oh my God.
You've never heard that
No,
before?
I haven't. Oh my god, that's funny.
Oh god, this is an old one. A PPM, purple pussy monster. Yeah,
There's
there.
too many
Yeah.
there's too many options on the
Well,
market.
there's less drama that way too. Like, I mean, it goes
Well,
guys and girls. You get something automated, there's no drama.
oh my god. Oh my god. But like it goes with the socialization where we are up each other's butts all the fucking time.
Mm-hmm.
And you can be friendly with people. It in public service we like our dirty jokes. Okay, cool. But like have some fucking boundaries. Like I understand it's an obstacle especially if you're not doing something, but you need to have the emotional regulation to be like, I'm in a committed relationship and this person's crossing boundaries. Set a boundary or fucking ghost them.
Well, I think too another facet to this is just the general tone with which we talk. We get in this
Yeah.
echo chamber of negativity where that becomes like a social currency. It is so much easier for me to bond with a guy in public service if we throw in a little bit of negativity, just a little bit of griping to kind of like, it's almost like they drop their guard a little bit. And I mean, I will still kind of keep a general, like, to show that I'm not a prude, just be like, just make some comment in general about, how busy the day is or whatever. Just like, that fucking sucks. Like, just a little something like that to kind of break the ice. But unfortunately, that's just become the norm. It's the norm in how we talk to each other. It's how we talk to other healthcare professionals, other kinds of first responders. The rampant negativity is everywhere. It pervades everything.
Obviously, we would like y'all to go watch the previous episode with Daniel's conversation with EMS Avenger, but this was actually talked about with the two of them about social media, for example. So, like
Mm-hmm.
our channel, our Paramedic AF channel, we obviously, confront negativity, blah blah blah, but we're not putting out like the toxic shit. And then they actually had an interesting conversation about
Yeah.
followers.
For those of you who don't know EMS Avenger, Jimmy is, I don't remember currently what his following is. He's predominantly on TikTok. That's where his heaviest presence
He's
is.
like 160.
I think he's more than that. I think he's over 200K, honestly,
Okay.
which for EMS people is a lot.
That's good, yeah.
Like, that's the equivalent of an influencer for us. Is when you hit those numbers, that's a lot.
Mhm.
But he made an interesting point, which I'd also heard on a different podcast by another guy who we don't even particularly care for, but he brought up the same point. If you want to go viral on EMS social media, post negative shit.
Mhm.
Post negative shit. Talk shit. Like, stay down in the fucking muck, and you'll get attention, and you'll get rapid growth. Whereas if you're going to stay towing a line, being positive, reinforcing a healthier dynamic.
I was about to say putting out stuff like this.
Yeah, you're gonna have slower growth because this isn't our default posture. Our default posture is not receptive to positive input, and we'll still talk rough. We don't really censor what we say on here.
I think my previous comment proves.
I mean, yeah, we hit this section very, very strong with that. But that aside, I'll jump down your throat in a hot minute about something. She'll jump down your throat in a hot minute. But the point is to push towards something better, not simply perpetuate the shit that we just churn up over and over and over and over again. We see it in the fucking rumor mill. What are the things we want to talk about? A, trying to show off how we were on calls, try to dick measure. B, we want to share the tea. And I say that Michelle and I are each other's tea buddies. There ain't shit that one of us hears that the other one doesn't. But it also stops there.
Well, and that goes to all aspects of our lives.
Well, yes. But, we kind of look at it as, well, we can be each other's tea buddies, so we can, like, get that sensation of telling somebody, and then it stops right there. Obviously nothing job sensitive or whatnot, especially as, you're moving up to important things in life.
Well,
but
we also use it as basically data collecting, temperature checking.
Yeah.
Certain situations. It's not like we're using it for drama or personal gain or spreading it or telling other people. It's truly knowing where we stand, how it applies to us, if it affects our jobs, etc. But beside the point.
So we need to start making better choices about not just who we spend time with, but how we spend our time around people. We need to be more picky about who our friends are. We need to be able to say, hey, like, you're cool, I enjoy working with you, but I don't want to hang out with you outside of work. And there's people that do that with this like toxic avoidant perspective. It's like, oh, I just hate people. I'm sorry. Your brain is literally not wired to be by yourself.
Mm-mm.
Like, that is not how humans have evolutionarily developed over, centuries, countless centuries.
Mm-hmm.
So
There's a difference in not liking like masses and masses and masses of people, but you can't just hate everybody.
you can't live as an island. I mean, okay, you physically are able to, but you're not going to be successful in life. You're not going to have fulfilling relationships with people. You're going to put a cap on how far you can go in life, and you're going to become very dissatisfied because we're meant to be social creatures. We're also meant to do things and to accomplish things. You can't accomplish shit if you don't know how to talk to people, how to build relationships with people, different kinds of relationships. Doesn't mean that everybody you talk to has to be your best friend or that's it. You need to have degrees of relationships with people. You need to be good at cultivating that and understand all those different dynamics, because without that, you're going to live a very lonely, sad life.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
Um,
that kind of brings, sorry, as I itch, that kind of brings us into like our unhealthy coping mechanisms.
yes.
Because you have, unhealthy relationships with coworkers, whether it's sexual or not, tea buddies or not, whatever. But then what do we frequently see? We have caffeine issues, we have tobacco issues, drinking issues. Listen, for the record, we're in healthcare. If you are a fucking alcoholic, don't try and hide it.
Mm-hmm.
There are, pot belly, flush face, even if you're in the AC, there are fucking signs that you're an alcoholic. So let's just not pretend that you're not an alcoholic. Okay?
Yeah.
I have to put that out there. I don't care if you're in the street, if you're an admin, we can fucking tell. Okay?
Yeah.
But with the unhealthy coping mechanisms, it's not helping your physical health or your mental health. I do want to throw out there, it was in, I think, one of our Listen Lindas, but we also talked about it in the very first episode for personal wellness. Your mental health and your stomach, your GI system go hand in fucking hand. Not just, oh, I'm worried so my tummy's upset. Like, no, there's literally a like neurobiological connection called the brain gut axis. Axis is an AXIS. We also the polyvagal theory, which has to do with the vagus nerve. We have deep dived into these topics in several podcasts. They go hand in fucking hand. And with your mental health and poor coping mechanisms, it is going to affect your physical health, not just, oh, I'm feeling down and depressed and tired. No, it's going to fuck your tummy up.
And I think there's a lot of things that are coping mechanisms in disguise that
Yes.
we don't directly associate as being coping mechanisms, but they are.
Doom scrolling.
Even things that may have started out as something innocent, we create dopamine loops for ourselves, because that's ultimately what coping mechanisms are for.
Mm-hmm.
Is you're wanting a dopamine hit to counteract the stress that you're dealing with, whatever it is, or a dopamine hit to counteract the cortisol release, whatever it is. So if you look at coping mechanisms as a whole, they tend to be very dopamine rich things.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily long term, but short term, yes. You get that dopamine hit off of whether it's porn, whether it's alcohol, whether it's nicotine, or ungodly amounts of caffeine, or
Social media doom scrolling.
social media doom scrolling. Like, all of those are coping mechanisms. To me, the quick way to identify what your coping mechanisms are is ask yourself if you can do without something.
What was it that we had read and researched? It was if you can do without it, there was a time limit on it. Wasn't it like if you can go without looking at your phone for an hour, your phone is like there was a time limit to it
I'd
that
have to look. I think that
well
was in Dopamine Nation.
yeah, so Dopamine Nation, it's a book that we've talked about
Mhm.
earlier last year, but y'all should read it.
It's by Dr. Anna Lemke.
But literally it talks about like what Daniel's saying, if you can go without something for a certain length of time, I think it's like as short as an hour. Like if you
It
have
depends on
to,
what it is.
but like your phone, for example, if you can't go an hour with like with downtime. If you can't go like an hour without looking at social media, then that's a dopamine problem.
There's so much data out there on this great rewiring of our brains. If you
Mhm.
go read the book wow, verbal stroke, The Anxious Generation. I don't remember the author's name. I have to go back and look. I've just been listening to the audiobook. But he is explaining why all of these especially he especially dives into social media and technology and explaining how that is literally, even though it's an external device, it's literally hacking and rewiring our brains. The way software is developed, the way that social media platforms are developed, it is specifically to latch onto your body's natural dopamine regulation and fuck with it. There
Mhm.
is there are mountains of data of empirical data on the effects of social media on mental health on all age ranges, especially children and especially females, especially young females.
Mhm.
Depression rates in young females went up by, like, I want to say it was to the tune of like 125%
Mhm.
in the past like 10 years. Again, I'm loosely quoting, but those are the kinds of statistics that you're looking at. Since the creation of Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all of that, there has been a significant trend in a downward trend in mental health on kids and adults. Get your kids off the fucking phones. Your kids have zero business owning a phone until they're a grown ass adult. Their prefrontal cortex is not developed enough to be able to regulate off of those devices the way that they exist now. It is not okay. You are going to fucking pay for it, and they are going to have a horrific time having interpersonal relationships as they get older. But it's not just fucking kids. We, as adults, even those of us who grew up without cell phones,
Mhm.
we have latched onto this and have used this as an excuse, A, for coping mechanisms, and B, to avoid the quality in-person relationships that are actually essential to our growth and survival as humans. It's easy to talk about alcohol and, substance abuse and,
Mhm.
caffeine, and with that, caffeine, nicotine, all of that. But the technological coping mechanisms that we have just embraced wholesale are really killing us. It's so hard to have reasonable conversations with people anymore.
Mhm.
And but why? Because our phones fit in our pocket.
Mhm.
There's zero barriers to access. So you can just whip it out, and in less than 5 seconds you're already hooked on some shit.
Mhm.
And the variable feedback loop that you get from scrolling, where it's okay, sometimes the video is going to give you a dopamine hit, sometimes it's not, is what keeps you scrolling, and it's fucking endless.
Mhm.
So you're literally chasing dopamine hits. Why do you think you have fucking headaches? Why do you think you feel exhausted? It's because you're draining your body of something that is good and healthy that it needs, but you're not giving it the chance to reset. We have to shift the conversation about coping mechanisms, not even shift away from anything, but shift to include the fucking phones in our pockets. Look at your fucking screen time. Look at your apps. What can you uninstall and use later? We have to address all of that.
Mhm.
Uh, you, you,
We could go on about this
yeah, you
forever.
you can't get away from this conversation. You really can't. So we've talked about emotional regulation and trauma, socialization choices, unhealthy coping mechanisms. What's the fucking solutions for all of this?
Well, first, and honestly, first is therapy. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, primarily to help you with trauma, emotional regulation, but depending on how self aware you are, it can also help you with unhealthy coping mechanisms and socialization and all that. I'm not saying there's not a place for religion, but when it comes to therapy, you need to go to somebody that is specialized in dealing with trauma, childhood trauma, inner child work. If they use like religious references like within that therapy for you, like that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But going to an
It,
uncertified pastor just for, oh, we'll go read the Bible. That's not I'm sorry, that's not going to fucking help.
it's one thing if it aligns with your core beliefs, period. Okay, cool. Whatever your spirituality is.
But you still have to have the trauma
No, I
side of
know.
it.
I know. I'm just saying as an addition to that,
Yeah,
if
that's
if
fine.
if the therapy is infused with belief systems that do align with your core values as an individual, awesome,
Yeah, that's
cool.
even better.
Or part of therapy may be, spending more time in your spirituality set, whatever it is.
Mhm.
I mean, we're very open about the fact that we are not, Protestant Christians. We are very much in the, I guess you say, the broader pagan community, and we don't proselytize. We don't shove this down people's throats. We have found a value system and a belief system that very much works for us, that aligns with us as individuals and aligns with our family. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's, in a lot of what we believe, our belief system is very driven by this mentality of you are responsible for making the most of your life. You're responsible for how you process the things that happen to you. So, sure, if that feeds positively into therapy, fucking go for it. Maybe you meet with a trauma counselor and you go meet with your pastor.
Which is fine,
Exactly.
but you have to meet with somebody that is aware.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing that pisses off Daniel and I the most is what we consistently hear from public service members are, "Oh, well, this therapist isn't used to dealing with public service and they don't know how to deal with me." I'm sorry, we're not fucking special. On the day to day, whatever, we see some really horrific shit. But the signs and symptoms that we experience, the flashbacks, whatever your coping mechanism,
Verbal stroke.
yes, coping mechanism is the same shit that anybody else has dealt with,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what it is. Like, it's not even job specific. And here's the thing: are you truly traumatized and have bad coping mechanisms because of the job? Or do you actually have childhood slash early adulthood, non work related issues that are just feeding into that work is making worse?
Mm-hmm.
Because there is a difference. And sometimes it is masked to the point that you don't actually know until you're able to talk. I think everybody should be in therapy, even if it's not weekly. Maybe, just to
Maybe
make
it's
sure that
quarterly or
yeah,
yeah.
quarterly, maybe once a month, whatever. But you sometimes need an unbiased person to help make you self aware of shit. You may think that you did a self inventory and you're like, hey, I know all my problems. And then you sit down with a trauma therapist and they're like, really? Because you missed like, this, and this. You missed like 50 things.
Yeah.
Maybe not that many. But point being, maybe you think you're coping and then you actually go to somebody that's trained to look at stuff and you're like, well, what about this sign or symptom? Like, that's actually, a
Mm-hmm.
problem. You dig into it and you realize you actually have a trigger that you had no fucking clue you even had.
And peer support groups don't count.
No.
Now, that's not saying they don't have a place, but I would argue that a lot of times peer support groups do more harm than good,
Mm-hmm.
because you have people who are not trained,
Mm-hmm.
that are dealing with life altering topics
Mm-hmm.
and perpetuating,
The
not
negativity.
necessarily, well, and not even just verbal
Triple
stroke,
stroke.
not even just negativity, but are just what they are well intendedly talking about is not actually helping. It's incredibly important to have that objective, unbiased source of evaluation and assistance to move you in the right direction dealing with this stuff.
So, when speaking about therapy, that kind of goes into our second solution, which is feed your mind correctly. And like we said, a lot of the stuff kind of goes hand in hand, they go together. But like with Feed Your Mind Correctly, we've been referencing books that we've read and podcasts that we've done and even conversation with coworkers and family. And I'm not saying that you have to bare your soul to your coworkers or even your spouse, but like you have to have positivity in the safe place to be giving your mind positive things, good information. I'm not saying that you have to go read a book, it has to be all the medical journals, related to EMS. If anything, it's actually healthier to do stuff, have hobbies that have nothing the fuck to do with medicine. Not even EMS, but nothing to do with medicine. So oftentimes outside of shift work, we are on specialty rescue teams and we have 5 different jobs between the two of us. But anyways,
Not for long.
right? But you know, 5 different jobs. We're on associations and groups, and we, you know, only go to dinner and hang out with our coworkers on off time. It is healthier for your
Mm-hmm.
mind, which I mean is connected to your body, to have stuff not related to medicine. Not even public service, but don't fucking do medicine. Go play Minecraft with your kids for 30 minutes and then go play outside. Like, or in Daniel's case, learn
Yeah.
Minecraft. But
Yeah.
listen to podcasts. There is so much good fucking information. And part of 75 Hard is reading a nonfiction book. Like, don't get me wrong, I like my fucking fantasy books. I like my young adult books. You know, I don't read smut, but I don't.
There's some pretty gnarly shit in the books that you read.
Now, well, one
It's
series,
not like actively a smut book, but
well, I will say that one series, ACOTAR, if you're familiar with it, it is not advertised as a smut book. I mean, it truly is a fantasy world book.
but there's some shit in there.
I was going to say that book caught me off guard because I got to one part and I turned beet fucking red. We were traveling and I was not expecting a part that I read. I was like, oh my God. No, I'm talking about like the actual, like, you know, man with, you know, the shirt and on the front cover, like actual smut. But anyways, I like my fiction books, but the whole point is feeding your mind correctly and doing good things. Read a fucking nonfiction book.
It doesn't have to just be development stuff. Like you can like you said, you can read fiction, read other stuff. I'm not saying can, like, oh, you have to have permission to, just we're adults.
Good options.
And there is no excuse for not being able to learn new things. There are so many resources for free, not just YouTube, not just podcasts, a lot of these fucking AI engines.
Yep.
You can just ask a question and you get so much high fidelity data back and explanation and the ability to have granted, it's a virtual conversation, but just the ability to troubleshoot stuff and process things quickly and expand your knowledge base very quickly. But again, I give the analogy of your brain as an engine. The higher quality fuel that you put in the engine, the better it's going to perform. If all you're doing is feeding it cheap dopamine hits from Facebook or TikTok, as much as we use TikTok, sort of, we rely on it to pump out content, but we personally don't spend a lot of time scrolling on it. But instead of those cheap hits that aren't, I'm sorry, I know a lot of people say, oh, well, there's so many cool things you can learn on TikTok. You're not gonna learn something in a 30-second video. I'm sorry, that is fucking horseshit. Can we just cut that out? Like, can we just stop pretending for a minute? Like, sure, there are some educational things on there, but if you actually want to go learn something, you need to apply some effort. That does not require effort.
I was about to say, what I like with TikTok is if you go to the STEM section on it and find a topic that you're interested in based on the 30-second video, then go research. It basically, TikTok should be like a little snapshot of a topic, and you have to take the initiative to feed your mind correctly and go research on it more.
Well, but also we live in this world where we live through other people's experiences. And that is so dangerous and toxic for our minds. It's much better for you to go out and have a messy experience out in the real world than to sit for an hour or two watching other people's experiences. Go find a hobby. One of my things, and I mean, life has been a little hectic right now, but I'm fascinated by ham radio. I'm working eventually towards getting my ham radio license. It doesn't advance anything really in my life. I just think it's fucking fascinating and it's cool to have that experience and to gain a dying skill set. There's so many things that are about to be lost in this world. Blacksmithing is about to be lost. You know, outdoor navigation is something that's about to be fucking lost. Like, the ability to function apart from technology, any skill that you have like that, or I should say apart from mainstream technology, you know, tools are technology. But that's all stuff that is, there's so many opportunities to learn things and to feed your mind good, healthy stuff. If you want to read books on psychology, that teach you about how your mind works. You want to read books on self-improvement, on business, on emotional regulation, on dopamine, on war. Like, as we've discovered in doing 75 Hard, the first book we read, 33 Strategies of War, sounds boring.
It's actually not.
I mean, there were some moments where it was like, oh my God, can you just not drag on? But that's minimal. That was the exception, not the rule. You realize all the parallels in life. There's nothing new out there.
Well,
everything's related to everything else.
And I will say about that book and the 48 Laws of Power that we're reading, literally all the chapters are like 8 pages long. If you can't handle 8 pages a day, then there's a problem.
And we are so conditioned to creating our own echo chambers. Because it's very easy to look at a book like 48 Laws of Power or 33 Strategies of War and be like, there's a lot of manipulative shit in here. But you have to look at, hey, you need to be aware of the full spectrum of what's out there in the world. And not just the tools available to you to accomplish what you want and get what you want, but also the things that other people are doing for you to be able to respond to it. You need a broader spectrum of exposure to information to be able to live a more full life and see where you fall in everything, how you relate to other people. But what do? We self-isolate. And we block ourselves off from those things because we want to be in our own little island. We don't want to deal with the hardships of actual real relationships. We would much rather be isolated and deal with the negative consequences of that than deal with the negative consequences of bad interpersonal interactions. But we sacrifice the highs of those interactions because of the lows. And that's just ridiculous. And that's where we're hurting our minds. And why people aren't thinking in terms of longevity. They're not thinking in terms of how can I be in control? How can I gain more control over my life? It's more of a survival mode. And they're keeping themselves stuck in it.
Well, and I feel like that ties into the third solution, which ultimately is having healthy coping mechanisms. So the exact opposite of unhealthy coping mechanisms. You know, we keep referencing 75 Hard. Have we outright outlined what it is?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've gone over that at least once.
Okay. Well,
Google it for more information.
I mean, yes. But ultimately, so today is day 50 for us.
Yep. Today's 2/3 of the way there.
Ultimately, what we've come to the conclusion of, it's not actually, at least for us, this is a strong statement, but at least for us, it's not actually as hard as people say it is. And I feel like it's because certain components of 75 Hard, Daniel and I had already implemented into our lives as healthy coping mechanisms for us. You know, we were already well read. So, I mean, adding that in, 10 pages isn't too bad. We already had refocused onto healthier eating habits, which for a lot of people is really fucking hard. We already relatively consistently worked out. So, I mean, yeah, it's kind of hard adding in a second one, especially on shift days, but guess what? It's not impossible. Having healthy coping mechanisms, Daniel and I cleaned the whole fucking house in like 3 days. Spring cleaning, all kinds of stuff going on. But before it was, oh, we have the day off. Oh, I'm so exhausted. Oh, there's 50 million things to do. It's affecting my executive functioning. I'm just going to sit on the couch and veg for an hour. But instead, we have felt fucking great doing everything. The house has stayed clean. Like, it's wild. The house stayed clean for a week. Like, it's great.
Which with 3 kids is a feat.
Well, 3 kids and how many jobs? So, like,
and how many animals?
Well, yeah, and the animals. So, like, if you start implementing the healthy coping mechanisms, it's going to make it easier to deal with the daily hardships, the daily friction, as we called it. If you're exercising consistently and really well, it's going to help you with your emotional regulation. Being around positive people, or people with like-mindedness to you, and feeding your mind healthy stuff is going to help your mental health, which is going to make you want to do more physical stuff. Physical activity is going to in turn help the mental health. Like, it's all circular, friends.
Well, and I'll throw in a little personal story too. Back, oh God, I can't even tell you how many years ago. This was probably a good 11, 12 years ago. For some reason, I picked up the habit of vaping. I'd never smoked cigarettes before. Kind of dabbled with, pipe tobacco, but, never really like latched onto it. But I started vaping. And at the time, it was just fun. Like, I liked all the different flavors. Getting a nice little, like, mental kick from a low dose nicotine felt great. Well, that grew and grew, and especially through paramedic school. Ironically, through paramedic school, I actually did not consume a ton of caffeine. I stayed pretty low caffeine intake because I had undiagnosed, unresolved sleep apnea. I was not sleeping for shit, on top of working multiple jobs and full time paramedic school and clinicals, ride time, all of it. So for me, it was very much I wanted to be able to sleep at the drop of a hat. But the nicotine thing became a huge problem.
Mhm.
And for those of you who do vape, I was at my worst, I was consuming about 120 mLs of juice in 4 to 5 days. An obscene amount for anybody. So it got to a point where I was having to choose between food and vape juice. Like, that's how fucking bad it got. I finally got to a point where I said, you know what? I don't want this shit. I don't want this shit running my life. Like, this is unacceptable that I'm at a point where I have to decide between food and something that is not essential to my body function at all. So I cut it cold turkey. This was back 7 years ago now. Cut it cold turkey. No winding down, no tapering off, gone. And not gonna lie, I was kind of grouchy for a couple of days. was not fun.
A couple.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um but it was the best thing I ever did. I feel happy, healthier, and sure, periodically, I will take a hit off of a friend's vape just for the hell of it. And that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. Every once in a while, and I mean like once a year, maybe twice a year, I'll smoke some cigars. Not a problem. It doesn't control me. It's this is fun. I'll go do this. So it's important. The moral of the story is evaluate the things that are on par with your basic life needs. And if you have stuff in your life that is not essential to your basic life functions, that is holding that priority with those, competing with priority for those, that's something you need to address. Whether it's your social media, whether it's your food intake, your, alcohol, nicotine, whatever is placed itself on par or above your basic needs of food, sleep, and relationships is a fucking problem. That's an addiction, or at the very least, simply an unhealthy coping mechanism. At that point, it really is an addiction if it's interfering with your basic life needs. So we can sit here and pontificate on so many different things that could do, should do, would do, all of it. Ultimately, you need to do the self-assessment. You need to get into your life and say, hey, where am I spending my time? Where is my time and energy and emotion going? And the good things, feed them. And there's certain healthy coping mechanisms that are good for you to obsess about some.
Mhm.
It's okay to obsess about, again, we talked about the proper mental health balance. It's okay to obsess about, making sure your diet's on par, making sure that you got your fitness locked out to a T. Nothing wrong with that. And those things are good coping mechanisms.
Mhm.
If you're eating healthy food, find healthy foods that you like to eat. It will be a rewarding experience.
Mhm.
Set some goals for yourself physically that will improve your mental health. Because trust me, going to the gym and sweating your balls off is a great way to manage some stress. Absolutely fucking great. And do the difficult things first. Your body will naturally generate dopamine on the back end.
Mhm.
We hear about runner's high. That's a common thing.
Mhm.
What that is your body is under duress and is experiencing some kind of stress. But then when that stress is over, your body wants to compensate by giving you a dopamine hit.
Mhm.
If you switch it and you do the dopamine hit first, your body has a debt there that it needs to pay, and you're going to feel worse because you had that stimulation from that dopamine hit. So now your body has to balance it out. Plenty of science behind it. Go look it up. I'm not going to dig into all of that right now.
I was about to say, with the healthy coping mechanisms, ultimately, there is so much fucking research. I mean, honestly, even for the unhealthy coping mechanisms, there's so much research. But, like, ultimately, it's what is important to you, Do you want to set the goal for running or weightlifting or, whatever? But you have to find out what's important to you. And I'm sorry, if you have time to sit on your phone and scroll, go fucking research something. Research any of the stuff that we're telling you about brain gut axis, polyvagal theory, mental health.
Dopamine.
Go find a counselor. Like, there are good books, podcasts, if you don't like podcasts, YouTube videos. There is so much information out there. Like, we could sit here for days, and this is the thing that kills me. We can sit here for days and give you all of the solutions, and you can sit there and say, "Oh my god, that's a good idea," and then never do anything about it. So is it really, like, does it really matter to you? Does it really resonate with you? Because if it actually resonated with you, you would actually go fucking do something. Going and reading an article and figuring out how the teeny tiny little habit change can fit into your life takes no time at all. We have referred, I don't know how many times, to Atomic Habits, where if you make one little change and do it consistently with a good commitment, little habits turn into big habits, turn into life changes.
And ultimately, good ideas never made anybody better. It's the acting on those good ideas that made people better.
I was going to say, what? And then you finished it. I was like,
Yeah,
okay.
I had to finish it. Let me cook.
You're the better cook, okay?
We can talk about it. You can listen. You can absorb all of that information as much as you want. But until you actually start acting on it, it's not going to do jack shit. So it still comes back to you.
Congratulations, you logically learned something. Now go do it.
Yes, and like, if you're not doing it, you didn't actually learn it, in my opinion.
I mean, agree. They learn the concept.
Yeah.
But it's just like with an EMS: see one, do one, teach one. Hear it, do it, then teach it.
It's not rocket science. It's not complicated.
It
just takes a lot of work.
Well, I will say we're learning. I feel like macros and body chemistry and electrolytes and shit is kind of rocket science because I'm still struggling, but that's beside the point.
Well, okay, but we'll end with that as an example. So, all right, you need to eat better. Okay. Mm-hmm. What's part of eating better? Not just counting calories, but counting your macros. Mm-hmm. So your protein intake, carbs, fat, all of that, all your electrolytes. All right. If your response is, well, that's too much work. No, you're fucking lazy. And it's not actually that much work. You just need to apply some energy and some attention to it, because what you give your attention to will grow and will get easier and will become second nature over time. If you're consistent, you give it attention, consistency, and effort, you're golden. But if your attention is glued to your fucking phone, no, you're not going to get any better. Mm-hmm. You're going to live a short, very miserable, painful life. Honestly. So get off your ass. Actually take some ownership of your life, of the choices you've made, of the things that have happened to you, and you control the narrative on that. So take all those bad things. What did we talk about? I can't remember if it was this one or the part one, but the most successful people are the ones who have been through shit. Mm-hmm. Take the shit that you've been through and say, you know what? How can I make this something useful? How can I use this to motivate me somehow? Because everybody loves a redemption story. Everybody loves a hero story arc. So when you become the hero of your own life and take responsibility for that, then suddenly you have a story that can benefit other people too.
So something that we consistently see, not to backtrack to trauma, but some related to what you just said. A lot of people love to talk about trauma. They walk around with a chip on their shoulder. Well, they walk around with a chip on their shoulder as justification for being a shitbag. Mm-hmm. There is something to be said, and I think it was about the CEOs and stuff, but there is something to be said to have like the smallest little chip on your shoulder, but to utilize it as motivation to prove people wrong. Mm-hmm. All through my childhood, I was told, I was fat. Even though I wasn't fat, I was probably too skinny. But, overweight, I was not good at anything. I was going to fail out of school. Literally, my father told me I was going to end up 16 pregnant dropout. And I'm like, okay, cool, fuck you. Even though, swim team captain, did all of the things, honor student, I was never smart enough. I was stupid. Well, then I think we've shared previously that there was a paramedic program director at the previous program, not the one I graduated from, but in another state, that told me because I was a female and had a history of trauma in my past that I was going to be a failure. I was going to fail out. If I got my paramedic, I would never succeed. I would flame out. And listen, the shit that I have done in my career, like I am so, and I didn't do it because of them. It was more so I did it in spite of them. It was, well, I know I'm better than what they're telling me, and I want to do it to prove them fucking wrong. And like, I can honestly, happily say in my life, I have stomped the shit out of those two people because I'm exactly the opposite of what they told me I was going to do in my life. And that is the kind of positive chip, if you will, on your shoulder that we should have. Like, sure, if you're fat and overweight and lazy, and somebody tells you you're fat, overweight, and lazy, like, a lot of people will internalize that and be like, oh, well, I'm Charlie 2 ton and I can't do this, this, and this. But you know what? Stop using that as a reason of, oh, well, I'm already, 2 tons or what the fuck ever. And I'm not going to do anything. How about you actually, instead of starving yourself and restricting your calories to 800 a day, how about you actually start systematically doing things, not just to prove other people wrong, but to prove to yourself that you can actually do it? Why not challenge yourself? There was actually a study of a group of nuns at, you know what? I can't think of what it was. I can't think of where it was. I'm sure you could easily Google it.
There's none left anymore, so.
Stop it. Stop it. But this coven of nuns, when they did, it's not coven. Oh my God, what is it?
Convent.
Oh no, I'm sorry. This convent of nuns. Jesus Christ, I'm gonna get crucified for that. This.
The irony of that statement is fucking hilarious.
Oh my God, I'm gonna get crucified for that. But anyways, this group.
At least you can make it even. I'm just kidding. What?
Let me fix it. No.
What?
I'll fix it after.
Okay. I'm lost on that one.
I feel uneven.
Okay.
You had to. Anyways, it's not a coven. Convent of nuns. It was an article. They actually did brain scans, and every single one of them had the anatomy indicating that they had Alzheimer's. Yet they were fucking quick as whips. Why? They exercised their brains. They went out and did walks. They did missionary work. They did things to challenge themselves. They were not complacent in life. So yes, have a chip on your shoulder to prove others wrong, but you need to challenge yourself and tell yourself, set a goal and be like, I'm going to prove to myself that I can do this, even if it's only walking a mile or hiking a mile or what the fuck ever. And you can always increase those goals. Don't be complacent. You'll also die young.
Keep moving the goalposts. Every time you hit an objective, keep making more. It's not hard. It's really not hard. You just have to want to do it. Well.
Holy cow. Holy
shit. That was a lot. Anything else we need to throw in there last minute? I think we've bombarded them pretty heavily.
I mean, we could talk about this forever, so
yeah. We'll just wrap it up.
Yeah,
if you learned something, good. Share this with your friends. If you were offended, good.
This time I hope so.
You really should be. Get up and do something fucking about it. And we'll talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.